Hello, I would like to talk about this topic with you. As I grew in this environment that was also that of living like a beheaded animal, where all virtues were directed into behaving in a kind of obedient fashion like a pet, and that one is to only be rewarded for behaving like a pet, and then to even be shamed for it, to be outcasted if one were to behave otherwise. We are born in this zoo. We are born in these little segregated boxes that divide us rather than unite us. And we are being fed extremely specific information via algorithmic diffusion into behaving and being a very specific kind of pet that feeds into a very specific kind of commodity. Thus we fill that niche of monetization, the madness. I have faith that we didn't have so much value and virtue put on vanity, and that whatever vanity we did have served a purpose, a true purpose. It was something special. What we wore and what we carried and kept with us had a value beyond vanity. Our minds have been manipulated into believing and to thinking of what actually looks good, of what is to be sought for. That, this is a man that ought to be aspired to being, when I can't help but see the majority of man being a decapitated pet. That frustrates me. So I sit here and with the desire of being an animal and embodying the flesh that I am as a part of nature. Consumerist infantilization is the beheading and desensitization and prescribed dependence that consumerist society places on every single human being within it to behave as if one is a needy child, or even within the realms of the independent man and the independent woman within these societal schemas is still very much dependent on the system. Yet it is still a prescribed virtue that one can aspire to be this independent. But it's all bullshit. There's something that weighs a heavy burden on my character and my being. And it is that man has become but a pet inside the confines of a zoo. That is a living condition that exists in one's mind, and thus we actualize it beyond our mind and into the external world, into our physical world that we experience, where our conditioned mind adheres and promotes and supports the virtues of the zoo, where what is successful within the zoo comes at a tax of your beloved soul, that humanity ought to attribute all of their values to serving this said consumerism that kills them. When I look out, there is not one man that I aspire to be, that all the virtues that are being idolized by my fellow man are solely promoting these pet-based ideologies that profess separation from man and its nature, where we have taken the essence of God and have made it lifeless and soulless, where all such vanity is as bleached coral within our beloved oceans. So when I look out, I can't find myself. I cannot find myself when I stare into another man's eyes. When one feels all such pomposity and value and success, all I see is a starving rat feeding itself more and more vain. So when I see its eyes tired, its skin pudgy, its body feeble, its nervous system dysregulated, that is the idol that I aspire to be, where the baseline of health is but the vanity of a perfectly depicted pet with its perfect hair and its perfectly shaved face and its perfect stature and perfect body with its perfect clothing. Yet all of it is empty. When our eyes have become hijacked from all that is before us being laced with candy, it leaves every soul starving. And thus we wonder why we feel this disconnect when we get that momentary awareness beyond our default mode network that is conditioned to be distracted, to be avoidant, to be desensitized. How exhausting. So I think, what can I offer? What is my purpose within this schema of insufferability? I cannot find myself joyous, fulfilled by playing the games of the zoo. Not to mention the majority of work culture, the people that are working within it, are quite retarded when they solely speak about vanity or their prescribed problems or their lack of, suckling on their gluttonous addictions for their insatiable, oversaturated selves. Do I want to hear that ringing in my fucking ears? God, no. Do I want to normalize this sickness and force a smile upon my face to trick myself into thinking that this is okay, that this is healthy? Terrifying. I'd be a bit of a fool if I left you with this expression of hopelessness. So, what I'm doing to reconstruct my perceptions around reality and where one's virtues or values ought to be, it begins with the reconstruction of our language, given that language is the basis of understanding and perception. So if I am to work with my language and change my language, in it how I speak, one would hope that I can also change my perceptions as well. And perhaps to create perceptions that better serve the totality of self. And how can I possibly work on that? How can I do that? Perhaps to speak as righteously as I possibly can. To be aware of one's own projections and emotions, and to witness reality with as much clarity as possible. To speak as if I have the eyes of God, and to hopefully instill this vision of God into those that are around me, and to be wary of becoming egoistic or inflated or self-righteous, but to speak in a way that is as close as to the truth as one can be, and to eliminate all such redundancies of speech that only lead one astray, to speak righteously. To speak as if everything I say is a spell that I am sowing into the universe. And given this, one would hope that one speaks intentionally, and that my intentions are that of creation, and to speak without vain, and that if I am willing to speak righteously, one will be granted the grace of God in each step and each motion. And within that grace, there's this forgiveness and forthrightedness in one's desire of being. But just as any, I can also be deluded to my own perception of what is truthful, because I am solely limited by my own perspective. But I will still do my best nonetheless. I have vision, and even if my vision is a far-reaching harmony, I best be willed into its heavenly nature before we are all erupted and consumed by hell. For it is this hellish landscape we are projecting and professing into our lives, though I ought to be willed by heavenliness. Yet I also understand that it is within the nature of God to possess both heaven and hell, that I am the embodiment of all creation and destruction, and that perhaps that is righteous. Though I also understand the perspective of, who am I to say that I know any better than any other? For I do not. And this I also know, though I hope to profess peace within the space that I reside and those that are around me, and that I be diligent with the words that I speak. Though I see this as a kind of doubt of righteousness. If I am to constantly step on my own toes, how willing am I to be righteous and to live a life of virtue that professes prosperity within the mind of God? This is also a challenge that I have. To be sure, to be certain that what I am speaking, that what I am professing is of my truest capacity.